Hello, welcome back to the Smart Recaps channel. Today we bring you a recap of the adventure film, Passenger. The film begins by showing a very luxurious spaceship named Avalon, with the aim of a colony planet called Homestead 2, which is controlled by autopilot carrying 258 crew members, and 5,000 passengers who are all hypersleep. Avalon is a ship with the highest security system. Even the crew doesn't need to worry about meteor storms, because this ship is equipped with a shield, which is able to burn all the debris away. But one day, Avalon passed through an asteroid field that required greater power than usual, so it had to concentrate almost all of its power on the divide. Unfortunately, the concentration of power was not able to hold the asteroid well, because in the middle of the storm, the largest asteroid hit the shield with hard enough, thus forcing it to restart the entire system. As a result, all hypersleep tubes were impacted, and one of the tubes with the number 1498 failed to be repaired, thereby automatically waking up the passengers who were in it. James Preston, a man from Denver, Colorado who works as an engineer, had to bear the consequences of the disaster. When he woke up, he was explained by a hologram machine that has passed 120 years of travel, and now 4 months before arriving in the colony, the man, who prefers to be called Jim, is about to enjoy a luxurious space journey with all the amenities, and can build relationships with other passengers, who will together become residents of the planet colony Homestead 2. The next day, Jim was very excited to take a training class, how to start life on a colony planet. Later he will be taught how to build, trade, and various kinds of training to improve skills, which are needed in Homestead 2, in order to start a new, better life. But strangely, only Jim was present in the room. He didn't find anyone, not even the officers. Besides that, the captain and crew were not in the control room. A question mark appeared in Jim's mind. Why was he the only one who woke up, while in 4 months, Avalon would land at Homestead 2? Finally, in the observatory room, Jim got an answer, that actually Avalon had only traveled about 30 years, of which there were still 90 years left to arrive at Homestead 2. Realized that the capsule had a problem, Jim sent a report to Earth, in order to get directions to fix it. It's a shame, but it's a shame that the Homestead company won't be able to get a report back in 9 years at the latest, and then Jim will get his payback about 55 years later. At a bar, Jim finally found a very friendly face. With a feeling of relief and gratitude, Jim tried to approach the friendly face and explain that they were in big trouble. Apparently, the feeling of relief did not last too long, because it turned out that the barman was a robot named Arthur. Jim also tried to dig up information about Avalon, as well as tell his condition, but it's a shame that the Homestead company seems too arrogant with its technology, so that Arthur is unable to find an answer to Jim's problem. For Arthur himself, what Jim experienced is an impossibility. The next day, armed with his skills as a mechanical engineer and a book on hibernation ports, Jim started repairing the capsule, but it wasn't as easy as imagined. Again, because of the arrogance of the Homestead company that designed the capsule, it couldn't be damaged. They didn't provide spare parts, so Jim almost died trapped in a capsule. He went back to see Arthur to just drink alcohol, but not a bartender. If he can't give light advice, in living life, a sentence from Arthur, that anyone will die, including a robot. Don't let the desire to be in a place make you forget to enjoy the place. For now, Arthur's advice has given Jim crazy ideas. Again, the man is taking advantage of his abilities. This time he is accessing facilities that shouldn't be enjoyed, such as executive class bedrooms, sports arenas, games, watching theater, and free meals at the restaurant. 5-star restaurant. At first everything was very pleasant, but in the end it would not be able to cure the feeling of loneliness he was experiencing. Jim was really depressed, until one day, after enjoying the view of outer space, he intended to commit suicide. When he woke up, Jim ran as fast as he could, so he didn't realize he had stepped on his own drink bottle. But who would have thought that behind the disaster he gave, the bottle also brought Jim to a sleeping woman, who instantly made Jim fall in love. Aurora Lane, that's the name of a beautiful woman lying in a capsule. Aurora Lane made Jim crazy, until the man accidentally glanced at a book that had been read, so maybe the contents could be memorized. The book was a hibernation pod. Jim intended to wake up Aurora. Jim's feelings became chaotic that day, plus Arthur can give advice, because what Jim is about to do is a violation. Jim tries to forget his intentions by exercising, not discussing it again with Arthur, and even Arthur is strictly forbidden to mention Aurora's name. Long story short, Jim woke up Aurora, then after feeling better, Jim went to the main room to meet Aurora. Aurora, who was confused, asked Jim, "Why is no one here?" Jim told that the only one who woke up was himself, and now with Aurora. Then he took the Aurora to the observation room, and the journey was still 89 years away, which means it had been a year since Jim woke up. Aurora was still in shock, trying to find a way to get back into hibernation. Jim told her that everything had been done. and special equipment is needed to be able to revive him. Not getting an answer, Aurora decided to rest in her room, and Jim went to see Arthur, so as not to divulge the secret that he had woken up Aurora. Meanwhile, the computer system detected that the damage inside the plane was getting wider, but there were no signs of notification. It turned out that this Aurora was an upper-class passenger, where she could buy a delicious breakfast, different from the lower-class passenger Jim, and could only buy a simple menu. Out of pity, Aurora also gave him the same breakfast as hers. Aurora is also a writer. She began to record everything she experienced into her diary. Aurora then went to Jim and asked the reason for moving to Homestead 2. Of course, Jim replied because he was tired of living on Earth and wanted to build everything from scratch. Besides, Jim was a worker who was liked by the company, so he had the opportunity to go there. This is very different from the purpose of the Aurora. According to him, life is an adventure, and it turns out that this Aurora has bought a round-trip ticket, where after arriving Homestead on Planet 2, he will stay for 1 year, then he returns to Earth. Which means, when he arrives on Earth later, it will be almost 250 years. Then, to reduce boredom, Jim began to invite Aurora to enjoy all the entertainment that was on the plane, and to further attract Aurora's attention, Jim also gave Aurora a miniature Chrysler building that he made himself. After feeling close enough and confident, Jim ventured to invite Aurora to have dinner together. When finished, Jim invited Aurora to go enjoy the outer space view, so he asked Aurora to wear her protective suit. After that, they immediately went out and enjoyed what was out there. After they finished, they went back inside. Aurora was very happy, and more attracted to Jim, and they also celebrated happiness by having sex, because there were only the two of them. They also did it in any place. Aurora began to accept the reality she was experiencing, and began to think about enjoying the rest of her life with Jim. Long story short, today is exactly 1 year Aurora woke up from hibernation. They celebrated together. Arthur also congratulated and gave them a drink, and said that Aurora was lucky because Jim is a good man. While joking, Aurora said that Jim is not nice guy, but the most important thing is that there are no secrets between the two of them. Arthur asked Jim, "Is that true?" And Jim said yes. Jim then went to his room to take a ring that he had made earlier, and was about to give it to Aurora. Unexpectedly, Arthur, who had previously promised not to reveal his secret, he told Aurora instead, because according to him there was no longer any need for secrets between them. Arthur told that it took Jim months until he finally decided to wake up Aurora. Aurora was surprised. It turned out that Jim had deliberately woke her up because she was so shocked and angry. Aurora started to stay away from Jim. Her feelings were so broken when she found out about this. Still annoyed, Aurora came to Jim, who was sleeping, then beat him continuously without mercy. The next day, the computer detects the damage to the plane is getting worse, and a system failure occurs. After the computer restarts, Jim was so sorry, seeing Aurora that was so stressed and lonely. After he finished ordering coffee at Arthur's place, what Jim did made Aurora, who saw it, a little amused. Suddenly the plane started unstable, and experiencing system error again. They were surprised by the presence of someone near the tree. It turned out that he was the captain of the plane that had failed hibernation. The captain looked unwell, because he had just come out of the capsule. Then they split up to collect damaged data. While the captain went to the hibernation room to checking their capsule, Jim is done. He goes to the captain. He is told by the captain that the capsule is damaged due to the chip burning, while Aurora, the capsule is accidentally opened. Aurora, who has finished collecting data, immediately gives it to the captain. Aurora reports Jim's actions, but the captain explains that he can't do much because it's beyond his control. Aurora, who can't sleep, decides to swim, but suddenly the plane loses gravity, which causes it to be trapped in the water. But the computer system can make it normal again. After that incident, they gathered in the navigation room. Now the computer has finished analyzing the damage to the Avalon. The damage occurred to the main system, and has happened since 2 years ago. Then all the resources on the plane tried to do a backup, but was getting overwhelmed. If they didn't find and fix it soon, the plane would long ago be destroyed and threaten thousands of other lives. Suddenly the captain fell and passed out, and they took him to the treatment room. Later in the observatory, the captain gave his access to Jim, and asked them to take care of each other before they died. After that they headed to the main room, and looked for the source of the damage, until finally they found the plane's computer reactor, which was damaged, hit by an asteroid. Long story short, Jim replaced the damaged component with a new one, but unexpectedly, there was a failure of the air vent room, which wouldn't open. They had to cool the reactor, so that it could function normally. Manual methods were used, but the ventilation valve still couldn't be opened. Jim had to open it from the outside. Then Jim cut a steel door, just in case and to protect it from the hot blast. Once there, Jim managed to open the ventilation valve, but he had to hold it in order to keep it open. After that he asked Aurora to pull the manual lever, and don't worry about it, even though she's worried that Aurora does it anyway, otherwise the room will explode soon. And finally the reactor was successfully returned to normal, and the plane entered recovery mode. The previous attack made Jim thrown and floated in the sky. He also couldn't come back because the rope broke. Aurora immediately rushed to help him, and took him to the treatment room. The computer detects that Jim is dead, but Aurora doesn't give up so easily, and orders the computer to defibrillate, to beat her heart again. His efforts were not in vain, because Jim managed to live again. After everything went back to normal, they released the captain's body out into space, as a form of final respect. Then Jim checked the healing machine that had revived him, which turned out to be a machine that can be used for hibernation. Jim immediately called Aurora and asked her to hibernate again. He also said, there was nothing to worry about from him, because he was used to being alone. But Aurora prefers to live with Jim, and finally Jim can give a ring to Aurora, and in the end they both live together throughout the journey. 88 years have passed since that incident, and people began to wake up from hibernation. People were so shocked, because the plane was covered with many plants, there were even animals there, and the film ended. Thanks for watching the recap. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to get notified when we post the next recap. See you next time.